Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. It is 2024. And we have made it almost through January. We're in the last Thursday of January. Tonight we are kicking off our family council meetings. And we're going to be talking about two major things, the HCBS settings rule compliance and an update on the CILA rate calculator hours kind of debacle that has been underway for the past year at in the state of Illinois. So we have some things to share about that that just happened yesterday. So I don't know, do we want to, Jim, do we want to have people introduce themselves first?
Why not? Since this is the first go round of the year. Hi, everybody. Jim Gould here. I have a son in the CILA in Elgin and at the day program in Elgin, and I serve on the board at AID.
Great. I'm going to ask us to do popcorn and tag somebody when you're done. So I'll take the tag from Jim and say that I am Lori Baker, President and CEO at the Association for Individual Development. And I'm going to throw it to Sarah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Maxwell, and I am the Director of Program Development here at AID. And I'm going to popcorn it to Sam.
Hi, I'm Samantha Moylan, Associate Vice President for our residential IDD services, and I will pop it to Kathy Hoyda.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Kathy Hoyda. My son Matthew is in CILA in Yorkville, and he goes to Keeler Day program. Gina, you're it.
Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. Am I on or off?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm on, and I'm the mother of a 38-year-old daughter who is in an AID CILA.
And let's popcorn to Jim. Roth.
Hi, I'm Jim Roth. I'm a guardian for a young lady and the 54-year-old young in the CILA at Cottonwood. Been her guardian now for about 5 years and had a lot of contact with AID and a lot of assistance from AID.
Welcome, Jim. Let's go to Mary Beth.
Hello, I'm Mary Beth Chemisberry. My daughter Melissa is at a CILA in Elgin, and she goes to the ETC Training Center on Bowes Road.
Candace and Abe.
I'm Candace Goldstein.
Abe Steinberg.
And we're parents of a son at a CILA in Aurora who attends Keeler. And we'll send this to his, Miriam spoken yet?
Oh yeah, hold on. Allow, hold on. Sorry. Where am I?
There you are. We can see you.
I'm doing this on my, excuse me, I'm doing this on my iPad and it's not being very cooperative. My name is Miriam and my husband, Matthew. And we have a son, Raleigh, who lives in a group home on Fordham and attends the workshop and has a little outside job too. Oh, and I'm gonna do, geez, Louise, Mike, maybe?
Sure. Mike Bolero, I'm dad of Amanda Bolero, who is one of the next in line for AID services. We've got a house bought. We've got our kids chosen. We just need Laura to get off her butt and get us some staff. Right, Laura?
Working on it. I'm working on it. We have, actually, I will say, I will share before we go to the next person that we just had another one of our hiring events, and we've been doing these really There've been really good hiring events where we, on one day, invite everyone who has put in an application in the last couple of weeks to come in and do an interview on site and get hired on the spot and fill out all their paperwork and get their assigned first day. And we had more than 60 people come yesterday to our meeting, and we hired I think she said 16 and have 12 more in the works. So that was a fabulous day. If we could keep people from leaving on the other end, we might get caught up eventually. This is about our third or fourth one of these events like this, and they have gone really super well. And there's a really nice energy in the building when people are here, and people then feel the excitement about working at AID. So it is working really well. Mary Beth?
I have a question. Where are they being held at?
They are being held mostly in Aurora at our main offices, our main administrative office. And so we just kind of section off. There's interview rooms everywhere. People give up their offices to have interview rooms. There are set aside rooms that are larger where we can do testing that people have to take, like some of the tests for reading comprehension and other things. And then we have another room where people are, submitting all their documents, their IDs, and all the things that we have to have in order to fill out that beginning paperwork. And then talking to HR, getting assigned their training day to start and getting sent back out with a job that they just got all in one day. So
Yay.
that's been going well. Let's see. I think, Barb, have you introduced yourself?
No, I'm Barb Tracy, and my son Adam used to go to the day program in Elgin, but he got a job in the community through the job coach at AID, so he's no longer attending.
Yay! Congratulations, that's great. Bob and Mary, are you guys the only ones left?
Might be. Well,
Okay.
I just want to say that fabulous job on creating an energized environment for them to be interviewing. So positive for everybody. Everybody. Yeah. My name is Mary Shanahan and my husband Bob. And next to Bob is our 33-year-old daughter. Her birthday was just on Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday, Maria.
Oh, Tuesday. I'm sorry. She's
Weren't you there, Mary? I think you were there.
So Maria, we take advantage of the home-based services, but we are researching everything, and so we listen to all of your things very closely to hear the goods and the bads, and working on something for Maria's future. Maria has a job. She works for the village of Carpentersville and does data entry for them. And she's been there how many years, Maria? 10. Yeah.
Wow.
And they've done a really nice job of recognizing her for her anniversary and birthday, and so she's in a really good environment, and it's a quite new building, so it's very accessible.
Great, that's fabulous.
Yeah. And we live in Algonquin.
Oh yeah, nice. North Country. Let's see, somebody just joined.
Yeah, I think Sue needs to introduce herself too.
Yeah, I wonder if Sue did too. I was looking at her and trying to decide if I had heard her speak or not. Hello,
Are
Sue.
you seeing? I have a question. Are you seeing everyone on one screen, or do you only have 4 boxes?
I have more than 4 boxes, but I have a giant screen, so I think it goes out further. You can set up your view at the top, where you can make it a gallery or a speaker or together or a large gallery. Like when I put large gallery, I can see more people.
Large
Yeah.
gallery works better. I think
Good.
there's still a couple of pages though. Good turnout tonight.
Yeah, very nice. We're trying out some new ways to remind people about this as well. Sue, we just keep talking over you. I'm sorry, go.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm getting my act together here. I just came running back from a family night at school, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta get in here and take off my coat and jump on the computer. I'm Sue Gould. I have a soon to be 31-year-old son who is in a CILA in Elgin. If this sounds familiar, and if Jim told his story already, Jim and I are ex-spouses, but we do work together as far as things for David. And looking forward to finding out some new things for him to do and some, some more, work, volunteer, something that he can get his teeth into and get his butt moving.
All right. And I think Georgine just joined us just a couple minutes ago. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Now, can you all see me? I'm not getting to
Yes,
show up.
we can see you.
Okay. My son Christian is 26, lives in the CILA right here in Yorkville. I feel so blessed, fortunate that he's like a mile and a half from me. I could walk to visit him. So it helps me be super involved, but not so much that I'm hovering over the staff. And I think I understand what you're saying, Sue. We and I don't know how to. I'm not sure what the topic is, so I don't want to take too much time. But I'm pretty proud of ourselves, Julie. And I don't know if I saw Julie on here yet, but Julie DeGus, who's now Julie McClarnon, and I got the guys at Winterberry. We have them walking at a local track, indoor track, 2 nights a week, and another night of the week they go bowling. And we might be starting, they need to do something purely social. So we might try to come up with some social things for them to do that are whatever is geared toward all the guys of their interest.
Fabulous.
Yep.
Thank you. Welcome. Good to see you. So it's good to see everyone. And I think I'm going to have yes.
I didn't get.
Oh, Andrea, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm Andrea Consolati. I'm the Associate Vice President of the Community Day Services, and I'm dabbling in the employment services as well. I'm not as experienced in that part of my job quite yet, but I know a lot of you, and I'm loving putting faces to the names of the clients that we work with to see some of their family members. So that, welcome.
All right. Anybody else I need to be reminded of that I have left out unintentionally? All right. I'm going to have, I think, Sarah start, and then Sam tag in after that in order to talk to us about home and community-based settings regulations and compliance with those new rules and regulations and how we are doing there. And then at the end of the session, I'm going to update you as to the hours, proposed hour cuts and what is happening due to most of you all's great advocacy work. So we'll get to that at the end, but I don't want to start now because you'll have a lot of questions about that. So we will have Sarah start out. And I think you should be able to share your screen if you have anything to share. And if you can't, let me know.
Sure thing.
Oh, there it goes. I think. Woo, good job.
Thank you. All righty. Let me just make sure. Okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint that has the AID logo on it? All right, perfect. So
Yes.
This is the community, home community and let me try this again. Home and community-based settings rule. This was something that on a federal level we started in 2014. So it seems like it may have been a long time coming, definitely was. But first, let's start off with what is the community home and community-based settings rule. I say it all day, you would think that I would eventually get it, but so the Centers of Medicaid and Medicare Services requires that we provide enhanced opportunities for community integration and to ensure certain rights and protections are in place for individuals who receive Medicaid-funded home and community-based services. So the folks that are in our CILAs or that utilized home-based services to come to our day programs, this settings rule will take effect for those guys. Okay. Oh, hold on 1 minute. There you go. Sorry, I'm getting a little lag, so bear with me. All right. So the settings rule was essentially developed to ensure that individuals receiving long-term services and supports through Medicaid had full access to benefits of community living and the opportunity to receive services in the most integrated settings that can meet their needs and enable them to achieve their goals. So the
Sarah, I'm not trying to interrupt, but you're no longer sharing your screen.
Oh, I am sorry. Let me try that again.
There you go. You got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Lori. Okay. Can we see, we're back to what is home and community-based settings rule? Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you again, Lori. So what does, in the simplest form, this just rule ensures that individuals get the most out of community living and receive the person-centered services in the most integrated setting possible. Okay. Let's try this again. All right. So in Illinois, what started was back in 2022, of February of 2022, we started writing our HCBS or home and community-based settings policy and started implementing and creating the procedures as needed. And one of the requirements, if you will, is DHS gave us this fabulous countdown almost day by day of when evidence, essentially what they called it, needed to be submitted to the state to show that we were already demonstrating some of the rule settings that were outlined by the home and community-based settings rule. So on May 18th of 22, that was the AID's final day to submit evidence of compliance to DHS or Illinois Department of Human Services. And then what they did essentially is they would do an audit for agencies like AID to make sure that we were in compliance. For some agencies that may have not submitted enough evidence, DHS would then send out a person to do kind of a desk audit, what they call, where they would have us somebody in person come to AID, but that wasn't the case. So we then moved on to October of 22 to February of 2023, where AID received the validation letters from DHS stating that we were in compliance for the HCBS settings rule. And then on February 17th of 2023, there was the statewide provider compliance with the rule, which the HCBS rule. I promise I can talk normally on any other given day. So as we continue to kind of pave the way with the HCBS settings rule, AID did come up with certain things that we have implemented since then to ensure that we are educating and training not only our staff, but the people we serve on the settings rule. And then this is just some fun St. Patty's Day photos because why not, right? So what we did is we created the AID HCBS settings compliance policy. And it just basically states that we as AID, an agency that serves those that receive Medicaid services, whether it be for CILA or home-based, that we will be in compliance under the Code of Regulations, and that whether you receive services under our CILA services or day program home-based, that this compliance rule would fall under that. So we talk a lot about what is the home and community-based settings rule. So basically it's right reassurances. So the next few slides are going to be the assurances, or what we are educating our staff as well as the people we serve on their rights. And you know, we all need consistency is key, and repetition is always important for our guys to ensure that they are absorbing what we are working with them on. So to start off with, rights assurances, control personal resources. So their finances, whether they choose to budget with their case manager or queue, they get their $60 spending money through Social Security. And if they have a community employment, then they would obviously get those paychecks to them. Things that they can spend their money on obviously would be based on choice, like special rec activities or programs through Fox Valley Special Rec or NISRA, social outings, personal belongings that the individual themselves would be using. Another rights assurance that the HCBS settings rule outlines is the choice regarding services and supports. Freedom and support to control schedules and activities. So when they're doing their council meetings, that they are providing input on maybe what outings they want to do or activities they want to participate in, holidays they want to celebrate and honor. And of course, just like any human, treated with dignity and respect. To carry over to that, as we continue on the assurances. So freedom from coercion and restraint. So we do not do any type of restraints or anything like that. They have the right to have a lockable door in the CILAs if they choose to, but also if they have the capabilities to, and so on. Residency agreement, or similar to a lease. And then, of course, physical accessibility to locations, not just here at AID, but also out in the community as well. So for the people that have loved ones or family members in a CILA, we all have the residency agreement that they need to sign when they live in their CILAs. For individuals who are in an agency-controlled CILA, AID owns and maintains the building. This serves as their lease. So if the individual has a lease with an outside landlord, the resident agreement still serves as a statement of rights and responsibilities while they receive CILA services from AID. So we just want to ensure that the document from the other HCBS requirements, they apply to the 24-hour CILA setting. So the lockable doors, that does apply to the 24-hour CILAs. However, that doesn't mean that if a individual has maybe fine motor limitations, that we're going to give them a key and say, here you go on your own type of thing. Definitely not like that. It's just available to the individuals if they choose or would like to have a lockable door. All right, so for the implementation of the home and community-based settings rule, the rights assurances is something that we focus on not only at the CILAs, but also at day program. We also do staff training to re-educate and retrain the staff on the rights assurances through the HCBS settings. And then we also do trainings for the individuals we serve, whether it's at the CILA or at their day program site. So basically, I'm going on and on about HCBS. You know, when we're in the world of human services, we all love acronyms because why not? And so basically, what does this mean for your loved one and you? Just leave it up to us, okay? We have it completely under control. The monthly, we have monthly HCBS activities and groups. So as a part of my role here at AID, I create these activities and groups to be conducted across all platforms, whether it be at the CILA or at the day program. And specific settings rule are just organically also embedded in the person-centered plan. Great example of this is having the right of a lockable door, or the lease agreement where it goes over all of the rights. Every single year, I always say, when you're going through a PCP, it's like buying a car with all the signatures and everything you need to have. So the person-centered plan does cover some of the rights assurances, so it is not as mundane as it may seem of just a laundry list of rights. A lot of it is embedded into the person-centered plan. So now let's show off really quick. So one of the rules or one of the goals for the HCBS is seek competitive integrated employment if that is a goal of your loved one, family members. So these are just some great in action photos of showing the rights assurances for the seeking competitive and integrated employment. So as you can see, we have Amelia here and some of our other guys doing work inside and outside of AID. The next one is engage in community life. So we have some hanging out at the pool. Looks like I apologize if I look like I'm like screening in, but I'm going to baseball games, hanging out with friends, doing arts and crafts, doing holiday festivities. That is definitely something that our guys enjoy, and also just being involved in the community. Another portion of engaging in community life. We all love to volunteer and give back and contribute to the best way that we can. So we do volunteer at a variety of different agencies, locations, McHenry County, Kane County, the Aurora area. We definitely have a robust group and list of companies and agencies that we volunteer with and spend time with to engage in our community and to give back. So freedom and support to control schedule and activities. As I mentioned, we want to take feedback and, ideas from the people we serve. So this is just them living their best life, going, eating out, doing different activities, being a part of the Fox Valley Special Rec or NISRA, whether it be, month-to-month activities or, it being a St. Valentine's Day dance, if you will. Access to food and visitors at any time. Now, I will pump the brakes and say that doesn't mean that, people are, jumping in and out of the CILAs at all wee hours of the night, but demonstrating and showing when it's appropriate time to have visitors and how to go about that. Not without limits, the people living in the homes set the limits. So work done in the client input meetings for each home includes discussion and agreement on what kind of foods people want to stock up on, what they want to eat. We agree that we like to have bacon and waffles on Sunday morning, and we agree that we will save their ingredients to be cooked and eaten at that point. Also, they may agree that foods purchased by individuals, like the snacks and pop and special foods, will be kept in the kitchen, but that it is to the individuals. It is not for the whole house. It is for yourself, especially if you're using your own spending money, whether it be through that $60 or paycheck. That if I'm living at a CILA, I would need to ask permission from the person who bought it before I take it. So this also is an agreement among the housemates and just simply out of respect. Some groups may be comfortable with overnight guests, some may not, but that is, like I said, covered at the meetings and discussed before anything is done. And then physical accessibility, we ensure that all AID locations are physically accessible, but also ensure that we are advocates to our guys. If we are out in the community and notice that maybe there's not accessibility, that we will definitely voice our, we will advocate for our guys if they may not have the capabilities to do so, and ensure that they have accessibility to everything that typically developed adults or physically able beings have. So privacy and sleeping in living units. All clients supported in the 24-hour programs have single occupancy bedrooms. And so I'm fairly newer to AID, but I've been in this field for 14 years. And I will say that having your own bedroom is a hot commodity when you're living in a CILA. So I know I previously did admissions, and I always know that was a big request, was always asking, can they have their own bedroom? Because everybody wants their own privacy, no matter how old you are. So it is AID's goal for everyone in an AID CILA to have their own bedroom. And as of right now, that is the case. Generally, rooms are only shared with the consent of both individuals. It is the individual's choice if they want to share a bedroom and with whom. The individuals are also given input into who lives in the home with them. They meet and spend time with any potential new person served, and they also have the right to request moving away from someone that they may not prefer living with. And as you can see, somebody was extremely happy the day that he got his key to the new house, and also the fact that they're excited that of the ability to have privacy in their sleeping units or bedrooms. Another thing is everybody has their own flair and taste with decorating, and that should not be any different for anybody who lives in a group home setting or a CILA. So they have the ability to decorate and furnish their bedrooms any way they please. Obviously, there's always a double-edged sword to that because, you know, some people are not always the cleanest, no matter what. I have 2 kids, and I can attest to that. So having them be able to control and dictate what's in their room and how they choose to decorate it and what kind of bed sheets they want and so forth. That is their right. Obviously, it is our nature to ensure that there's not any safety hazards, that there's no fire exits being blocked, or that there's nothing that could trip them and harm them. But painting and hanging shelves and decorations should be done with assistance from AID's maintenance staff, but it is always possible. So for staff trainings, we do trainings upon hire. And again, I'm fairly new to AID and I can absolutely attest to that. And then we also have annual training that is mandatory. And then we also utilize Relias, which is a training platform that offers a variety of different training opportunities, all the way from person-centered planning to supported employment to how to avoid burnout. So since I've been here with AID, as I mentioned, one of my roles here is to create the HCBS activities that are come out every month. So on the right here, you see kind of the circles. This was an activity that I created. I want to say either for October or November. November. It was December. Sorry. It was I did around the holiday season for the individuals. Or the autonomy and independence. So knowing your inner circles, who do you feel the closest to that you can trust and share your secrets with versus who do you contain personal information from out of safety, and kind of knowing those layers of complexity and teaching them what is appropriate to discuss with certain populations versus not. I'm a big proponent of educating and working with clients and knowing their rights. So I created a PowerPoint for one of the months where it's my right. So even though on the bottom right, you can't see it in motion, I created animation where the image popped up and the wording said, it's my right. And essentially I was looking for the groups to scream out my right to vote, my right to choose religion, who to live with. So that's just a few examples of what we have been doing with our clients at the CILAs and day programs. And then on the left is a overview of since basically the entire fiscal year of 2024. So July of 2023 till June of 2024, all activities and everything are all ready to go. And we hone in on different rights for each month that are under the rights assurances, which were from a few slides ago. So I literally look at the DHS website and I go down the list and ensure that every single rights assurance is covered for one of the months. And as I said earlier, consistency is key. So there will be the same trends of rights assurances repeated, but it doesn't mean that it will be the same activity month by month, year by year. But we need to keep that repetition up so that our guys can retain their what we're working with them on with their rights assurances. So these are just, this is our last slide, and this is just everybody and living their best lives. I am, like I said, still fairly new here, but Mark just kills me with the thumbs up and the duck lips here. To me, that says it all. So, Lori, I don't know if families, guardians have questions, if this is the time to do it, whatever it may be. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to jump in, or I can always put my email in the chat and answer any questions after this, whether any families or guardians would like to email me if they have any further questions.
So let's do questions in a second. I just want to see Sam or Andrea, do you have anything that you want to add? And Sarah, you can, yeah, thank you. So we can see each other again.
So from our CILA perspective, what we've really been focused on over the last couple of months is actually having each household develop and implement their household guidelines, as Sarah had briefly stated. So there used to just be a client input meeting that was more brief and about day-to-day type things that they wanted to do going forward. But the household guidelines really help all of the members of the household living together to develop what their ground rules are. So years back, we used to have everyone sign just AID's house rules. And instead of having those standard house rules, now these guys get to drive what that looks like. And so we first had to develop our procedure and some questionnaires that we would implement with individuals. And out of those questionnaires, we recognized that we also needed maybe some photo guided ones. So we do have a picture version. And so I can briefly share if it will let me that.
Yep.
We start with our procedure, and then we have some questions that we notify individuals in advance that we're going to work on this, and we have one-on-one discussions. We prefer to use a trusted staff for that individual so that they can speak freely about how they feel about common shared areas, how should people dress or not dress in shared spaces, what personal items they want out, how should we treat each other's personal items that are out, how do we share our general house property, things about their private living areas, about shared food, and about personal food items and shared supplies. And so we really tried to dive into all of the important things, but we also left space for other important topics that individuals might guide. And we also have the picture version where we can allow folks to point to or indicate based on their facial expressions what they might prefer. So our assistive technology specialist helped develop our picture version. And then what we found through working on this implementation was really that maybe some folks were struggling with how to lead the questions or guide individuals through. And so what I worked on also was I kind of developed a sample CILA, right? And filled out 4 different sets of guidelines about things that were important, like what do we do if we're running out of something? Tell someone before it's gone, ask for help. What things do we want? No visitors, no pets. And then from that, we developed their shared guidelines, and that's what this process is kind of supposed to be, is that they work together to give their individual feedback together individually, and then they come together and really have a discussion about where they agree or maybe where they disagree and how to resolve those things. And then the final document is drafted by the home's operations manager. Everyone signs it and they agree to renew it at least every 6 months or as things change for them.
I just have a little more to add. So I think for Sarah took over my old position, so I'm here to support Sarah. And also I did kind of like the first year that we rolled this out from the state. So I can help answer any kind of questions that might come our way. But also, I think for our staff, this has been really important to teach them that we're not here to just take care of people, that we're here to facilitate independence and skill building and people living their best life, and also help them live a life as similar as they would if they weren't disabled or in a group home. Or, going to a day program of, like there's a lot of things that we take for granted that they don't even get the dignity of risk to try because we protect them from everything, or we make all their choices for them. So this really is trying to help us, put the ball in their court when we can, and also then to support them to take on as much as they can too, instead of just doing everything for them, but making them an active member of their community. And last night I went to play bingo. And of course, well, that's just fun. But there was a young lady there who she must have worked for the American Legion, but she had a disability. But it was so cool to see everybody else that worked there treated her just like everybody else that worked there. Like they surrounded her with just like, she must have felt great about herself in there. Like she must have been proud to be there. You could just see it. And they just valued her presence there so much. And so that's what I really want for our clients, is for them to feel a part of something and a part of their community and valued and appreciated and just integrated. So I think this, at the core of this movement, is kind of, that's where we want to get with for our clients, is for them to have that feeling of that they are just a valued member of our community. So that's all I have to add about it.
Thank you, ladies. Do we have questions?
Yeah, let me jump off your what you were just saying, Andrea, because I had written down to ask how staff roles, and I'm thinking DSP, direct care staff roles, have been sort of rewritten or re-envisioned to accommodate the requirements of the settings rule. I guess my follow-up point, and you addressed that. My question is, how are staff evaluated? How are they held accountable for that? Because to be frank, I'm not sure that at my son's house, I see very much difference in the last year in terms of community inclusion, daily choice. So how are staff being held accountable to these new standards?
I can answer that a little bit. So I think right now we're in the earliest phases of this. We've done it for almost a year. And part of it is just getting the education out to them and the knowledge out to them, and letting them digest it, because so many of our staff are so protective of that, or like they feel like everybody needs to be on the schedule. And so we've operated that way for so long, of just kind of controlling all out of good intentions, right? Of
Yep.
wanting to be helpful and make sure everybody has what they need and stuff. So I think this first year has just been more of changing the mindset of our staff and helping them understand what the rule is, versus necessarily like that huge level of accountability and action yet. We're really trying to get them to digest the information, but also, I don't know, I can speak for just the day program of, when we see people doing certain thing that is limiting someone, helping them see how that might be perceived as, instead of like, you're not doing this, or why don't we let them choose, or like evaluating what types of things we're doing. Like at the day program, we've had one staff, great staff, but they were very rigid on, everybody must follow this schedule, and this is the schedule in my room, and we need structure, and, which is important, but also, where is the space if someone doesn't want to do that thing? And just helping those people individually work through that. And is it going to harm anybody if they don't eat at 11 and they want to eat at 12:30? just giving them and helping our staff like expand the way they're seeing things, right? They're just thinking, we got to feed everybody, we got to get everybody toileted, we blah, 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 you know, and we're losing sight of any type of choice. So I think a lot of it has been like the teachable moments at this point. You guys can kind of jump in and say
There's
more, but-
also in our CILA programs too, we've practiced being yes people. Instead of no, we can't do that. Yes, I think we can figure out how to do that and how to support folks to do the things that they want to do. And then praising those staff that are taking that initiative to pursue those clients' interests. So, and talking about it in staff meetings and things about what cool things locations are doing or trying to do or trying to put together, and really having them connected to each other to really do some of those things too. So we had a rockin' New Year's Eve party. They stayed up way late, and it was like, we know we need some supervision, but this house normally has sleeping staff. How do we do this? Oh, well, so we brought a couple of groups like together. They had this rockin' party. The sleeping staff went to the other location and slept so that they were ready for the next day, but the awake staff stayed awake all night with these guys, and they partied all night and had a great time. So it's like figuring out how to say yes. They wanted to have, you saw the guys in the photos with the margaritas. They were just like obsessed with this idea of Cinco de Mayo and having a margarita on Cinco de Mayo. And it was like, well, we figure out how to say yes. We find the place that is open and is accessible and ready at the time that they want to eat dinner. And they made them like the best margarita they've ever had. I don't even know if that was the only margarita they'd ever had, but they were so excited. And that's like the kind of stuff that we keep talking about, right? It's like making the ways to say yes and then spreading that.
And I will just point out that culturally, this is a very complex issue when you think what we get paid for. So we get paid for caring and ensuring that no one is harmed. And you get OIG called, the Office of Investigator General, right? If something happens. So people are scared, staff are scared sometimes to try things because they're worried about an OIG report, because then you can't work at the location with the people that you have grown to support and care for. And so that adds complexity to the issue, as well as yes, we are hiring people, but people still continue to leave, and we don't have enough staff either. So that makes it difficult to do all the things that you might want to do in the community. So those creative ways of figuring out how to come together and do more may not happen every day, right? But we keep trying to expand the options that are available and respond to people's thoughts and needs. So it's complicated, like all things are, right, in life, but there are good things and times that we're not doing everything exactly the way we wish we could, but hopefully we keep moving toward more of the good things and away from less of the things that we don't want to be doing. Other questions? Georgine, hang on, you're muted. Let me unmute you. Oh, I don't know how to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself?
There, am I on
There
now?
you go. Yes.
Yep. Good. I confess I had never known this office existed. I never knew these were goals and protocols, but I'm ecstatic to hear them. And it's great to see you again, Andrea. Missed you. Our guys at Winterberry are, let me just ask this, they're a little lower functioning, so they don't need margaritas. I think probably we moms need the margaritas, but is this going on at Winterberry at their level and I'm just not aware of it, where they are making decisions and coming up with ideas?
I can kind of
It's a
answer
practice that
that.
we're trying to encourage there, but I think that is one of those locations where there are a lot of fears about if it will be okay and if everything will turn out okay. And so those are some things that as folks start asking questions and getting more comfortable, they are starting to think about those things. And I've had some, so I, like the biggest request really recently that came out of that entire region was, hey, we want to have a Christmas party again. Everybody wants to, and so we had developed this really neat process for client events where you had to have a committee and individuals had to be on that committee. And when I tell you there were maybe 3 individuals in the entire region that weren't on the committee to plan the event, that is very real, right? Like they all wanted to be on it and we didn't tell anybody no. And I mean, I did not dream that we would have Papa John's pizza and Jewel fried chicken, like, but it was their party and they planned it. And those were the things that like they really wanted. And the staff, as they got a little more comfortable with that, then they started to think about, well, can we exchange some gifts? Can we talk to nursing about our medications and how do we get this stuff to flow through? And I think again, just being the yes people and being willing to take small risks and think of things through, and then not always being afraid of things that don't go according to plan, right? And that was another big thing that we had to work with folks on, is that everything won't go to plan no matter how well you plan it, and getting comfortable with how that feels as well.
I can tell you, Georgine, good to see you too, by the way. I think for the first round of education, we kind of tried to put it out in the middle level range of our clients, right? Because it was our first thing. But, there were times when we would put it out and think like, this is too hard for some, or it's too easy for some. So, when Sarah came on too, like, she said like the main topics, we really want to try to expand on the library of materials for that topic, to expand to clients that might be lower or higher or in the middle, or needed in a picture form, or might need, it, they do better hearing it on technology, or so we are really trying to expand to that, because we realize that not everybody, any of us, receive information the same way. So how can we make it applicable to all people, at whatever level they're capable of getting it, right? So for Christian, even if he can have, more choices in what he wears, or, how is that going to be beneficial to him? And then to work it into his plan to make sure we're doing things consistently. I mean, that's kind of, we just got our feet wet this year, but we really should be incorporating these into their personal plans too, to honor these things. And I think the more that we can integrate them into just general practice in our day programs and our CILAs, in their personal plans, the more we're going to start doing these just on the regular. But yeah, it's, right now we're kind of at one level for the first year, but then we really want to just delve in and try to make it more palatable to everybody.
It's exciting. I'm ecstatic to hear it. And, I love that line. Let's find out a way that we can say yes. And know that hey, we got to be flexible and adapt. But
yep, that's a strength-based approach instead of a deficit-based approach, which is just slightly different, right? It's like not what can't we do, but how do we figure out how to make it work? And it's just like a hair's difference, but it makes all the difference in the world. Gina, I see you have your hand raised. I think you'll have to unmute. There you go. No, not yet. Unmute. Should be at the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen. A little, there you go.
Is that working now?
Yep.
Okay, so my question is, out of those multiple people that you hired, Are those for DSPs in the CILAs? Are they for administration? Are they for the mental health side? What jobs are you actually being able to hire them for?
All of the above.
Oh, so it's kind of balanced across the spectrum?
It is pretty balanced. In fact, you usually are able to hire more DSPs than other positions. But again, we lose people. It takes a while to train people. So we still are at about 90 vacant positions. Some of those are new programs on the behavioral health side. So they're not like empty, they're not in a location where it's like an empty spot and you have to have overtime there, right? Because it's some new things started, but it's a mix of both. And like tonight, I'm here in the office as are Andrea and Sarah, and they are doing a DSP training tonight, and we didn't used to offer it except for during the daytime, right? And so we've been, just trying to be more flexible and think outside of the box. But, these ships turn slowly. Unfortunately, all these big ships we've always done it this way, right? So laughing, looking at like our name tag, we started working on this name tag initiative probably 6+ months ago. And I'm not a very patient person, but we finally kicked off January 1st with our name tags. But it just took like all of this time to get all the data that we needed for what people's names were and what they wanted to be called, and give people the opportunity to change that within Paycom and our payroll system, and to choose what type of and how big it would be, and did it have to have somebody's credentials on it, and all. I mean, I would be like, oh, think that we would have the decision made, and then there's like, oh, but what about this? And we finally got to the point, and we have kicked up, and it's been, I think, really good, and it fills a lot of purposes. It's about inclusion and being able to know who staff members are. It's about security, because we know you work here. If you have one of these on and come into the building, you have to have one on to come into the building at any of our locations. They're supposed to be wearing them. We made them safe so that they were magnetic, so that if somebody grabbed them, it wouldn't, hurt the person who was grabbing it, or the person that was having it grabbed, right? So it just pop off. We had to put together the procedure and the steps of how you got a name tag and how many you got and all these things. So all of these things seem simple, but take a long time to implement. And I see some teachers nodding their head out there, because those systems are the same, right? Very, kind of regimented, and we always do it this way kind of thing. But I think it's really, it is actions we need to be held accountable for from you as parents and guardians, but so that we continue to push ourselves and the work forward, because we all agree and believe that people should make choices and do the things that they wish to do and be treated like any other person, and live their lives and work and live in their communities of choice. So we are, we are committed to that, and we'll continue to bumble around trying to do it, and learning how to do it. And we'll take a step forward and 3 steps back, but hopefully we'll keep moving forward, and we'll continue to have better opportunities for your children and loved ones as we continue forward.
And I'll say it's also been interesting that the last 2 hiring events, we not only were able to hire some full-time DSP staff, but also we saw an increase in people coming that wanted to be substitute staff, right? They wanted to come on, they wanted to get trained, and they want to work when they're able to work. And it's filling that gap where someone is approaching burnout and they need a few days, and it's filling that gap where someone has been here for 30 years as a DSP and has worked every Christmas for 30 years and wants to be able to take one Christmas day, right? And it's been really encouraging to see that there are people out there who want to stand in and fill in. I think almost 40% of the DSP hires that we did yesterday were for substitutes, people who either already have training or are willing to come on an alternative training schedule to be able to work when they can. And it really helps fill some of those other voids and gives our individuals some new faces to see and interact with as well.
All right, do we have any other questions? Are you ready to talk state policy? All right, I don't see any hands going up, so I'm gonna go ahead. So as you all are probably very aware, the state implemented a new CILA rates calculator at the beginning of last year, 2023 calendar year, that started out with the loss of 3.5 million service hours from the system. Sarah, you can drop off. Thank you. The system responded to that with a lot of pushback to say we did not believe during any of the preparation of the Guidehouse rate study that there was going to be a loss of service to the system, and has been working over the past year with the Division of Developmental Disabilities. There have been a variety of pauses that have been implemented, so those rate cut hours have not happened yet. Most recently, the LIGUS Oversight Committee was charged with looking at this issue, and they began meeting again in, I believe it was August of last year. Myself and Raj Mandrell, our Chief Operating Officer, are on that committee and have been for the entire duration of that committee that worked towards those rate, the Guidehouse rate study and then its implementation. The state believed that there were some corrections that were done, and then the decrease was only going to be 2.5 million hours instead of like 3.8. We continue to push back from the community saying we believe that there should be no loss of funding or services in the system that has never been accused of having too much service in it, right? So most recently, the state suggested 3 possible scenarios for to fix the issue, and that fix, those 3 scenarios were none of them acceptable to the community. One was kind of leave it the way it is, and there'd be 2.5 million hours lost. One was to implement a 0 hours model, which meant that if a person stayed at home or did some kind of alternative day instead of going to CDS, Community Day Services, you could get paid for that, but then you would have to have a staff person that would be there, and we don't have enough staff people to be in all of the locations that we have currently. And it really just takes resources from one place and moves them into another, because you wouldn't be billing for community day services, you'd be billing for the hours that somebody might be staying at home, let's say, right? So that didn't really fix anything. It still would result in a loss of hours and service to the folks that we serve. And the third one was later implementation of the hours loss. So that's when AID and all other providers and advocates in the community really started ramping up their advocacy. And so we called upon all of you and all of the 8,800 people that we send emails to begin contacting your legislators and asking them to contact the administration to say, what are you doing? Because basically the legislators put in $71.9 million in order to increase the DSP wage by $2.50. And the hours being taken out would mean that $86.4 million was lost. And I am not a mathematician, but I know 71 minus 86 is a negative number. It's not a positive number. So that's not a good thing, right? We started asking you all to contact your legislators and say, hey, you all have supported us, right? And tried to put more money into the system. And now the system is taking it back out with the other hand. So it's kind of a bait and switch kind of situation. So you all have been heard. We have had articles in the paper. We have had news stories on the radio and on television. We have had hundreds of people, thousands of people contacting all of the powers that be, the Secretary of the Department of Human Services, the Governor's Office, the Director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and your legislators. And so yesterday we had another Legacy Oversight Committee meeting where 4 different things happened. The first thing was that they announced, and you guys have probably seen this already, that they were going to extend the pause of the implementation of the rate calculator until the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2024. And you might have seen our governor actually spoke about that today. First time the governor has said anything about this situation that's been going on for more than a year now. The second thing that they talked about at that meeting was they explained a little bit more what the 0-hour model scenario would entail, and explained that like 37U would go away, which is an at-home day if that got implemented, and some other pieces around 0-hour model. The third thing, which is probably the most exciting thing, is that they introduced a 4th scenario for a way to deal with this. And basically that scenario is a net zero loss scenario where no hours would be lost from the system. There would be a realignment of those hours, not a loss. They would introduce an adjustment factor to all people who currently reside in CILA. They can't say what that adjustment factor would be until everything gets lined out, but it's still the best proposal that we have had to date because it means that there will be no hours lost to the system. The fourth thing that they talked about, and you've probably heard about this, is that the rate calculator is made up of 3 components, and only 3 components. The ICAP score, the HRST score, that's the health risk, I don't know what the ST stands for, but it's about health needs, right? And the third thing is the size of the CILA that the person resides in. So do they live with 7 people, 6 people, 5 people, 4 people? What, how many people live at the CILA? And a couple of meetings ago, the state announced that 80% of the ICAP scores that they had in the rates department were 10 years old or older. We received, because we are a member of the Legacy Oversight Committee, we received a summary sheet, got them in here, of all of our CILA clients and what their ICAP score was and what year it was last updated, 58% of the people that we support are 10 years or older. About another 22% are 9 years or older. And one of them was from 1997. Now, this is not because we haven't done ICAP scores updates or because the IFC hasn't done ICAP score updates. In fact, the individual service coordination entities are required yearly to do a redetermination of eligibility for Medicaid services underneath the DD waiver, which include an ICAP update. Apparently, whatever system that ISCs enter that information into doesn't speak to the rates department because the technology is so old. It's like Cobalt language, which, like, if you've even heard of that, I'm surprised, right? It's so old. Like, we literally have people on contract at the state of Illinois that have been retired for 20 years because they're the only people that can write Cobalt programming, because no one that comes out of school today has ever even heard of it, right? So those systems didn't talk to each other. So the state tried for a while to act like it was the fault of providers or ISCs for not updating this information, and now have come up with and have said that they are going to update those ICAPs with the newest information from the ISCs. They're also going to be putting out a draft informational bulletin, which is how they get us information about ways we should act as providers in the community, about how to update your ICAP scores if someone has a change. Let's say someone becomes very ill or has a stroke. Their HRST is going to change, but so is their ICAP, right? Because there will be challenges, and there's nowhere that we can go as providers and look up how do we submit an ICAP change for someone who has had a major change in their life that affects their ability to function in the community. So they're going to put out this informational bulletin, they say, by the end of the month. Now, that's just next week, so I'm not 100% sure on that, but they've been working on it for a minute. And they have committed to updating the ICAP scores with the newest information from the ISC, which they say will be done by June 30th of 2024. This is, I believe, good progress. I think that this has happened because of the noise that you all have made to bring attention to this issue and how it will affect your loved ones. We are not 100% there yet, right? Because I'm unclear, and I don't want to get too complicated, but I'm unclear. Right today, we have 9,777 people that reside in CILA across the state of Illinois. So those 2.5 million hours are missing from those 9,777 people. So the adjustment factor will basically, this is oversimplification, but divide those 2.5 million hours by the 9,777 people, and those are the amount of hours that's going to go to each person who resides in CILA today. But what happens if next year there's 10,777 people that live in CILA? How are we going to ensure that the appropriate amount of hours are distributed to those folks as they come newly into the CILA system? We also are just a bit worried about part of the argument about this entire implementation of the rate calculator has been based on equity, right? They say that there have been people that have received more hours that come into the community than other people because of deals that have been made with providers. We would argue in the provider community that the equity does not mean equal. People do not get the same amount of service just because you are in the same system. If it's supposed to be based on your person-centered need and what you would have. So many of the people that have a higher level of hours, it's because they have a higher level of need, and there are behavioral challenges. There are other pieces that add into that, that make the state wish to serve those folks outside of the SODC or some other setting. And so they are willing to provide more hours to people. We're kind of worried that this is setting up that same scenario, right? Because if we just divide all the hours equally by everybody that is in the system and give them those additional hours, how is that based on need? How is that equitable, and how does it not just disappear next year when we decide not to add that amount of hours back? But this is by far the best meeting that we have had since the Ligas Rate Oversight Committee started meeting again more than 6 months ago. This is the best proposal to date. And so while we have some details to outline, I feel much more positive about the communication and the way that the meeting was conducted yesterday, and that perhaps folks at the governmental level have finally figured out that this is not about, hey, you guys got a bunch more money. Why should you complain about losing some money out of the system? And that it's more about, we can't lose any money out of the system because we're just trying to catch up. And we're still, by the way, 49th in the nation in spending on IDD services, even with the pay increases that they have made available over the last couple of years. Now, I would accept any questions that you might have, although I'm not 100% sure I can answer all of them. But Gina, I see your hand up.
Okay, so the Qs are supposed to do the ICAPs. Who is going to be paying the Qs for all these extra hours to do the ICAPs? And if I understood you right, it's Service Inc. then that has to send the ICAPs to the state because you don't send them to the state?
So the ICAPs are technically supposed to be done by the Service Inc. In our relationship with Service Inc., they have always accepted our ICAPs and used them as what they turn in every year for the redetermination. So we already do this ongoing because it has to, the Service Inc., any ISC has got to do a redetermination on any Medicaid waiver IDD recipient in the state. And it happens every year. And there's a series of things that they have to do, which includes updating the ICAP. So that actually gets submitted all
But
the
they
time.
use the ICAP that's done by the Q. Service Inc. does not do the ICAPs anymore.
Yeah.
So the
that is
Qs
correct.
do the ICAPs, but they don't do it yearly, do they?
They do updates and
They
we're
do 'em.
required to submit it.
They are doing them annually based on the last year's date and then sending them in to Service Inc. But the holdup or the kind of catch in this has been that those two systems, like Lori was saying, weren't talking to each other. So the annual information that was being sent in wasn't getting to the rate section. And so people over time have slowly changed. And what looks like now is a drastic change because it's 2024 and we're dealing with someone whose ICAP was last reported in that system in 1997, for example. And so then what they're asking for in order to substantiate that result is a whole boatload of evidence, which if it's been 20 years, I mean, 20 years is the evidence, right? But it's coming up with what that evidence is that the ISC agency will determine is acceptable to put into the system to actually get it to get looked at.
And so that will not be the case now, supposedly, Sam. That's what we learned yesterday during the Legacy Oversight Committee, is that they will accept these changes because they have not properly connected those systems and taken those updates that the ISC has to turn in every year.
So in essence, it won't be as much of a strain on those two IDPs because they're already doing this work regularly and they have these relationships with the individuals to do the assessment accurately, which is ultimately what we do want, right? We don't want someone who only sees someone 3, maybe 4 times a year to do that assessment.
They're actually supposed to be done by somebody who has intimate knowledge of the person over the last 30 days. So it really shouldn't ever be the ISC, but that's what's required. That's what's technically required by the Division of Developmental Disability.
Well, but when they changed the ISCs to only having to have one encounter per year per client, that's when it changed to only the DSPs would do the ICAPs. Isn't that correct, or did I get that wrong?
That's not what the division says. The division says that it is the ISC's responsibility to do the redetermination every year, which includes an ICAP. But we, in our relationship with Service Inc., they have taken our yearly updates and submitted them with their redetermination information.
That would be nice if everybody communicated and everybody knew what they were doing, because it seems like half the time the state doesn't know what the rules are.
Well, that has been our experience over the last this last 6 months. At these Legacy oversight meetings, it's very apparent that the state doesn't know what type of population we really support in the community, what the needs are. I mean, because part of the argument initially was, hey, there's a lot of people on the high need end of the ICAP, and that should be like a bell curve, Well, not if all the lower need people are choosing home-based services, right? You have folks that need that 24-hour support actually living in CILA. I'm going to go to Kathy.
Yeah, I've been bugging politicians, and the two that serve Yorkville, so the state senator and the state rep, at least the state rep, and possibly with the state senator, they're going to come and visit Matthew's house in February. We have 3 dates planned out, and I told them save all 3 because if something changes at the last minute, we'll cancel and jump to the next one. But they need to see. I mean, one has already met Matthew because we go down there frequently, and they're now going to see him in his house, because these guys, they don't get it unless we keep pounding them on what goes on and doesn't go on. So anyway, Matthew and I are going to be working at this next month.
So I've met multiple times. We've met multiple times with Rep. Davis, Judd Davis, and he has been very supportive. And in fact, I met with him, must have been in mid-December, because it was right when we first started asking legislators to contact the administration, and he said he contacted them as soon as I left to let them know he wanted to know why they were going to cut these hours. So I believe that, and he's very supportive, and the new building that we just purchased is like half a mile or less from his office. So we have made sure, and he's excited that we are there, and I'm going to be there. And once we have our grand opening, we'll invite him over to that as well. But he's been he's been very supportive, and we have a board member who lives in Kendall County also who has been getting on Representative Jed Davis as well. So he's getting it from a variety of sources. So
Yes, when he first started, which was just last year, I showed up at his office. He was vacuuming and he still hadn't set it up. He didn't know there were group homes in Yorkville. Well, now he does.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're working on it.
Yep. Good
When's
job.
that next building ready? When's that happening?
The new building?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be a little bit we've got to do a little bit of reno for the CDS to move over there, but we should start moving in a handful of the behavioral health staff beginning of February.
Okay.
But that's another thing. Representative Davis is helping us get some of that capital money so we can do the reno there at that building in order to move over community day services over there. That's going to be a super location.
So Lori, what are the next steps for family and parent advocates like us in terms of keeping the pressure on the division?
So that's a good question. So at the end of the meeting yesterday, the IDHS staff was very adamant that we help cool down the temperature in the community because because they are tired of answering the phone, I think. But we met together today. The trades all met together this morning. We had a follow-up meeting with the Institute on Public Policy for People with Disabilities, and I know They Deserve More is meeting with all of us are meeting on Monday. And so we're trying to, I think, decide what the messaging will be and what we continue to do. So I'm hoping early next week we'll be able to get out information about how we should continue to contact and what our language is right around that. So I don't have a real good answer for you at the moment. I think that we are trying to balance like being grateful and wanting to work with what has been offered, right? With not then like keep turning the screws too much so that they're like, well, nothing we ever do is makes them happy. So I hope after Monday we have a little better idea of how we can do that. And my thoughts are at this point is that we'll probably ask people to contact their legislators to let them know that there's been a proposed fix, if you will, and that we are very happy to hear that resources will not be lost out of the system, but ... what are the 2 or 3 other things that we need to do within that implementation? And that's just kind of what I've been thinking, and we'll see what everybody else thinks at the beginning of next week and get something out.
Assuming that there will be ongoing updates from the division as they sort of solidify what the plan is going to be, that it's not going to be, radio silence until the end of the fiscal year.
Right. And so there, like I said, this ICAP informational bulletin will come out. The plan for how to update ICAPs will come out. We'll have another meeting. We have not officially voted on as the Ligas Oversight Committee a selection of one of the 4 scenarios, right? It was just presented for the first time yesterday. So we were not asked to make any decision on that, right? Whether we agreed with any of the scenarios or not. Obviously, I think that will also be part of what the discussion on Monday is how do we as members of the Ligas Oversight Committee represent all of the community and the state, right? And tell them which one of those scenarios, which obviously is 4, right? But how we also ensure that the questions that people have about how that might work are answered.
Well, Lori, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us on this call, our gratitude that we've got heavy hitters like you and Raj on this state committee. I'm really grateful for that. So,
Mary Beth? No, oh yeah, nice, thank you. We do what we can, right, where we can, so it is important work, and this has been incredibly frustrating, and I will say that I have not experienced this level of disingenuousness from the Department of Human Services or the Division of Developmental Disabilities up until this last 6 months. And I was glad that yesterday was a much more civil tone and much less accusatory of the community, because many of the things that they were throwing at us were things that we literally had no control over ourselves, but they were blaming us for. And I think it was just because they were getting these calls from legislators and other people, and they just, couldn't deal with it or answer. There's no real answer. I still have heard no real answer of why we are sticking with this rate calculator, right? But they, have doubled down on that. I guess they spent all the money on the guidehouse rate study, so they think, that they need to finish it up. But, I really, again, think that this is the best option, but I am concerned about how new people coming into the system will get the hours that they need if they are just, kind of dividing up some arbitrary number of hours that were lost. Where is the rate calculator that tells us what people really need in order to be supported in the community based on their needs, right?
Yep.
Not just adding, 9,777ths of the hours to each person, right? But I think, we got to start somewhere. And so hopefully that'll be part of the discussion, in that we will say, yes, we want to do this. Let's look at how that is implemented. And one of the things we need to do is continue to refine that rate calculator, because right now there's no way to look at behavioral health needs that people have, right? And that adds additional hours needed, right, of support. And that we agreed that we wouldn't waste our time, right, because we were trying to press through this rate study, that we wouldn't try to bring that in now. But I think it needs to be one of the things we agree we're going to continue to work on, in order to ensure that we are really being person-centered and giving people the resources that they need to live in the community. Thank you for all of the work that you guys have done in terms of reaching out, making your communities aware, making your legislators aware. Really appreciate, without community members and people that understand how this would affect them and their loved ones, the advocacy is not, we just look like they think providers just want money. So they know that families really have the impact of what this would mean to their loved ones and to them. With that, we are way late because we've had a lot of interesting things to talk about, but we are scheduled to meet again on Thursday, the February 22nd, where we'll talk about communication issues and other topics. And I will say that we have a new texting system that we're using with our staff and want to roll out and use with parents and guardians if they opt in as well. So that'll be an exciting thing to learn about at our next family council meeting.
All right, everybody. Thank you for participating tonight, and we will see you next month.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, James. Thank you, Lori. Thank
job,
you,
Lori.
Sam.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Bye,
Andrea.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
appreciate it very
Thank
much.
you. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.